All right.
Is that a state law that we have to record all of our meetings?
Yes, I don't know if it's a state law, but it's the town's rule that we have to record. They all get posted on their YouTube account so people can watch them later. I think the state law requires that you have minutes, but the town requires this, so. Okay.
Before we start, I have a question. Have we scheduled our next meeting?
Our next meeting originally was scheduled to be the Saturday after town meeting, which would be the 10th. That's the only one we had scheduled, and we haven't confirmed that we're going to keep it that date, but that's our next one.
Okay, I'm curious about whether there's a speaker and whether I should do a press release, because I would normally do it this weekend.
I've not invited anybody to a next meeting. And it, you know, I think the reason that I'm trying to think about why did we schedule it?
It's scheduled like a post-town meeting meeting. It wasn't, I think we weren't planning on
Yeah, what we need to do is, I think, either before the end of the fiscal year, which is what,
June 30th.
June 30th? Oh, so we have another month to go then.
Yeah.
You know, we need to re-up or elect a new leadership or whatever at some point. Yeah. Okay, so let me find my my agenda here, which I had out, and now it's disappeared.
Do you want to read the
Here, I've got it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so welcome everybody to the duly noticed meeting of the Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers of Nantucket. It is a little bit after 8 o'clock on May 1st, 2025. This is a video virtual meeting that will be recorded, is being recorded. And therefore, if you have anything on your screen or in your background that you want to keep private, I recommend getting it off the screen, or you're certainly welcome to participate without a picture on yourself. And there will be public comment at the end of the meeting, and as we go through the agenda, we'll take questions and observations from the committee first, and then from members of the public. So that being said, let's establish a quorum. Let me just find my list here. So we have Kathy Baird is here. Scott Ulm, are you here?
I'm here.
Good. Patty Deuster? Not here yet. Gary Beller?
Yeah.
so she's here.
Okay. And Patty is here?
Yep.
Okay, great. Michael Cody? I think he was going to miss this meeting. Peter Kahn is here. Lou Bisano? Don Green?
Here.
Pamela Swan? Gene Briskman?
Here.
Donna Martino?
Here.
Lynn Filipsky?
Here.
Steve Perlman?
Here.
Bill Gardner? I didn't hear that. Was that a here or not a here? I didn't hear it. Anyway, Peter Halley. Well, we have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the last recorded meeting? which would be, I guess, a meeting.
April 5th, I think.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, okay. And then the agenda for today's meeting, is there a meeting, a motion to approve today's agenda?
So
Okay, and the second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so we have an agenda and we have a quorum. The purpose of this meeting is to go down the various ATM warrant articles and sort of finalize what it is that we are going to authorize our representative at the meeting, who will be Kathy Baird, to say. And so we'll just go down the list as it appears on the agenda. The first is our Island Home article, which is Article 13, which we previously voted, I think, to oppose Article 13. And there, what we propose is, if it seems necessary for Kathy to speak, that will basically condense down one of the various letters that were sent to the select board, and then to the INCI, and finally to the current. And I think there are 2 or 3 different letters, but they all basically say the same thing and make the same points. And so I don't think we really need to spend much time going over that unless anybody has any new information or new insights into the Our Island Home. I understand that at a meeting earlier today, the FinCom declined to, I guess, approve an increase in the money to be voted upon in the warrant in Article 13. Is
They
that correct?
they declined to approve the technical amendment, which would raise the amount to $130 million. So effectively, they are no longer supporting the warrant, because the warrant will come up as the $130 million mark.
Yeah. So that's I guess it's a bit dicey, but I think our position was that we opposed $100 million, or whatever the exact amount was at that time, and there's no change in our position. So anybody have anything further on Old Island Home?
Just one quick mention. I had a conversation with the fellow I know who's on the board of the nonprofit that's building the nursing home in Martha's Vineyard. And as you may recall, that has 70 beds, which is more than 54, and is being built for about half the price per bed than we're spending. And they have some concerns in Martha's Vineyard about how they're going to manage financially with that project in terms of filling it. In fact, he even said something to the effect, well, if you folks in Nantucket want to send some of your patients over to us once we open up, which is sometime this summer, I think, we'd be glad to talk about some sort of an arrangement, so that
Good.
they're facing, with a bigger place and a lot less money per bed, they're facing some financial concerns. So our financial concerns are going to be through the roof.
Yeah, this all comes up at a very difficult time, I think, in our history, where a lot of the assumptions made in the proposal that is on the table are basically pretty wobbly, with the possibility of cuts in Medicaid support, which wasn't even a consideration. We know there are tariff issues that seem to change by the day, and it's very hard to plan for any significant capital expenditure under the circumstances that we face. But, you know, there are facts that will be before the town meeting, and I have a feeling that there will be others who will, you know, basically ventilate all this stuff.
Yeah, Peter, I should just add that though at the top, at the Finance Committee meeting today, when someone made the point that Martha's Vineyard was coming in at well under the cost per bed that is being proposed for Nantucket, Libby was quick to point out that it's a different case. So who, you know, I mean, I'm sure there will be discussion of the differences, and trying to make that point. The other point that was made by the engineering team apparently, you know, is that, you know, anything time you build on Nantucket, it's a 30 to 40%, you know, increase in price. So I mean, they have all, you know, everybody's got the answer they want to give already ready to go.
Yeah. I think we all understand that there are differences between Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and the economics, and I know the Nantucket project includes housing and moving and other things that I'm not sure that the Vineyard project does, but
The Vineyard project does include housing for all employees servicing the facility. And they did it in modular housing in a circle around the hospital. They've done it in a cheaper, more efficient way.
yeah, and
But the housing is paid for by the hospital.
Yes,
That hospital, the housing, which will also include housing for the nursing home staff, is actually all being paid for by the hospital. So it's not part of the budget that the.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard to compare the two projects.
yeah, but it's not hard to understand what the price tag is. The
Exactly.
price tag includes all that stuff, and that's part of the problem. Okay, so I think we'll move
Peter,
on.
Peter, before you
Yeah.
go to something else, I think the main question is, we've made our position clear through the letters. The question is, should we say anything should Kathy say anything or be silent about this issue? The only thing I might say is, if we were to say anything, is to say, based on the recent increase in the costs, it has not the recommendation of the Capital Committee. It doesn't have the recommendation anymore of the Finance Committee. And even the local newspaper thinks they have to go back to the drawing board and do some more thinking about it. That's the only thing I would say, if we had to say anything at all.
Yeah, I think that's correct. In other words, the default position is not that we need to speak. The default position is Kathy will have her ear to the ground there, or above the ground, and make a decision to speak if necessary.
Personally, I think Kathy should say something short and sweet, sort of the way Gary indicated. For us to be silent about something that I think we universally feel would be a big mistake and would be a real burden on our constituency, it shouldn't be something that we don't speak up. Not everybody reads the Inky, and not everybody reads the editorials of the Inky. So I think we ought to be verbal about it if we feel strongly about it.
Yeah. So if that were to be the case, maybe what we really need to do is boil down what we've said in the past to something almost, a sentence or two sentences that basically it's kind of like the rent's too much type of a statement.
Well, but I think
and we
what
are
Gary
cons-
said, but I think what Gary has said is the way, it's what our whole approach has been, which is to lay it off on the committees that have really taken a hard look at it.
Yeah.
And say that we agree with them.
Yeah.
We also had found, I mean, I think you guys had done some, additional risk analysis. So this, the current administration and some of the things that are planning to be changed in how things get financed add an additional risk to what's already been identified.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, in their most recent numbers, they've added some tariff risk to it, but they
Okay.
haven't added any risk that I can see other than generalized risk to the numbers for the
municipal bonds.
lack of municipal
Yeah.
bonding or lack of
Well, yeah, what they're
reimbursement
saying,
support.
what they said today at the finance committee again, is that if they can start building by September, then they are guaranteed a number that cannot go up, cannot go up. How true that is, I don't know. Whether they can, I can't imagine they can actually start building by September, but that's neither here nor there. But that's what I think that's what you're going to hear at town meeting, that there's going to be a push to get, to say, okay, there is a cap, and it's as long as we get shovel in the ground by September, the cap will be 130 or whatever it is.
Fixed price.
Do you think the contractor is going to sign a contract that doesn't include an escalator on materials?
Yeah, that's what they said. No, that's what that's
Really?
yeah, that's what they've said.
Yeah,
Wow, it's
it's
hard
a
to
fixed
believe.
price- It's fixed price contract. Patty has her hand up, Peter. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
see it.
I can't. So Patty,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Kathy. I think that maybe Steve might want to weigh in on condensing what we would say. I think it's important we say something because I don't think we give enough credence to this emotional element that rises to the top when you're in a town meeting and the stories of the families and so on. And I think that again, with maybe Steve's guidance and condensing, we should lead off with, we have empathy. We need to take care of our elderly, but this is not the plan, and keep it very succinct because you've given lots of good rhetoric to why this is financially bad. But lots of people don't read that, but they do go to the people that vote, go to the town meetings, and it becomes emotional. And I think we need to say something, as Jean said, we need to say something. And I think leading off with the empathy would suit the situation well.
Good point.
You're welcome.
Since my name's been read, I would just say what Gary said is the right message, and I'm sure that Kathy can can do basically a 30-second message summarizing what we've said in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah. So it's almost like all of the town's trusted experts in this area have said this doesn't make financial sense, and we agree with them.
Yeah, I think, well, I think we can, I think we can say that we can say that we have empathy for the situation, and we agree with the Inky that it needs further study.
Further study, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I think that we have a meeting of the minds on this, and so the next thing is the short-term rental articles 66 to 69. Where we stand on this, we have not in the past taken a position on 66. We have taken a position on 67 and 68 because they are the two articles that have a discrimination in them, discriminating against non-voting taxpayer homeowners versus voting taxpayer homeowners. And then 69 is a little bit hard to get your arms around, but it's basically an amendment to section 123, which is the general bylaw, which has the general short-term rental regulations in it. And it, amongst other things, it would put a cap on the number of short-term rentals during a period of further study of the short-term rental situation. Kathy, is that kind of a accurate description of of 60?
69, that's one of the
Yeah.
components.
And
is
there's a total number of days, of 70 days.
70 days.
70 days, yeah. And so I think that we should consider doing at this meeting, if there is interest in doing this, is first of all, supporting Article 66. And Article 66 is a zoning article which would require 2/3 majority, and it essentially would codify that there is a right to short-term rent. And subject to the regulations that are already in Article 120 or Section 123 of the bylaws. And those regulations include a restriction of no corporate ownership. So that is basically, in my view, kind of maintains the status quo that probably all of us thought of when we bought our homes. I know that when I bought my home, I don't short-term rent, that renting was always a possibility if I got in a situation where I needed to have the money to support the house. And I'm, not, I think that probably most of us thought the same way.
Peter, let me give you some food for thought. I
Yeah,
happen to be in favor of 66. I think Carolyn Bolcher has done a fabulous job, but what I think about is the basic principle, which is that do we comment on something in which the non-voting taxpayers are being treated no differently than the voting taxpayers? And in this particular case, there is no distinction between the voting and the non-voting. So even though I'm in favor of the article, the question is, why are we dipping our foot into short-term rental if it in fact is not being prejudiced against the non-voting taxpayers?
Yeah, but I guess
We've done before.
Gary, if I may, Peter, that's you can make the argument, why are we dipping our hand into our island home too? Because there's no discrimination there. The issue, it seems to me, is that with 66, the issue of being able to finally get clarity, which the court is looking for here, as to whether or not you can rent your home, whether short-term or long-term, by the way, it's not limited to short-term, on Nantucket. And I think that is, it's about time we, I think, it's fair to, I think it's fair to say that our constituency would like to have the option, they don't have to exercise it, but they'd have the option, as Peter suggested, to rent if they needed to. And I think and given where the court has said, they're looking for some direction, and given all the litigation that's been ongoing, which is costing the town a fortune, I think it is in our interest as non-voting taxpayers to try to put an end to this and say, yeah, we support 66, and we are against 67, 68, and 69.
So let me just add a few things. So just for information, the 4 lawsuits that have been filed have all been against non-voting taxpayers. And so that's sort of is targeting us. And the 66 would put an end to that. And I did sit in the courtroom because I was subpoenaed to testify. I didn't, but I sat in the courtroom at the closing arguments and then followed up after that. And Peter's right, the judge is really looking for the town to make a decision to actually fix their zoning. And so the things that we've put in Chapter 123 are general bylaws, and they all regulate and put rules and restrictions in for short-term rentals, but we have not been able to pass anything that makes it explicit in the zoning that rentals are permitted in a residential area. It's a long, complicated story on why the word rent and rental got removed from the zoning, but it was not on purpose. It was an accident. So that's what's been leaving everybody in limbo and leaving in the opportunity for any neighbor to sue another neighbor because it isn't clear. So I think that's really what 66 is just trying to do. It says you're legal, but only if you follow all of the bylaws that already exist. So that's just adding that, you know, so that's why I sort of think it does apply. Most of the short-term rentals are owned by non-voting taxpayers simply because we own 60% of the homes on the island anyway. So the majority is us. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I think Donna has her hand up too.
Oh, I did, but you just answered it. I was wondering why you were saying that these warrants are prejudice against us, and you just explained why. But as far as our island home, I think it is a different kind of issue, because it really would be on our backs, our constituents' backs, if something like our island home did start construction. Because even though, you know, there may be restrictions on increasing materials and labor and so forth, that just doesn't happen in this world. It's definitely going to go up.
Ooh.
So I think they're two separate issues, but I understand what you're saying, Kathy. Thank you.
Anybody else have a view? And I can only see about 5 people at once, so speak up if you have a view on the committee. Okay, so let me just mention this in response to Donna. I agree with you, Donna, that these are two entirely separate issues, but I don't agree that there is some principle that cuts across both of them and says that we should not take a position on 66. And the reason I don't agree on that is because 66 affects everybody, both non-voting taxpayers and voting taxpayers, in the following way. Right now, or at least when I bought my home, and I don't know about others on this call, I understood that I would be able to rent it if I needed to rent it. And that made the decision to purchase somewhat easier. And I did purchase. I don't rent, but I do think that I and all other non-voting taxpayers would lose a right that we think we have if 67 or 68 passes. And those are the ones that have the discrimination in them. And so I think this is really about just, you have certain property rights. Everybody believed until somebody hired a lawyer and delved into this, that they had a property right, that now a judge seems poised to say you don't have those property rights. And if you value the ability, whether or not you will ever rent it, to rent your home, it seems to me that you would want to have 66 passed, and not have the others passed. And so you can't look at 66 as though it's a standalone proposition. It's an alternative, really, to 67 and 68.
Peter,
And it's the better alternative. Yeah.
as I said, I do like 66. So maybe if people think we ought to say something, maybe we ought to make it short and sweet and say, we think it's a positive thing that will put to bed a considerable source of dissension on this island that's been going on for many years. We think it makes a lot of sense.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yep.
And I've actually drafted something in case, because, you know, we have what, 48 hours or something until less than 48 hours of the meeting, which I could read or circulate or whatever. but if I read it, I'm afraid everybody will fall asleep or drop dead or something like that. But it says basically what you've said, and maybe a couple of things more, but it's basically a combination of what you and I have just said, which is I don't want to lose my rights, and I think this will put litigation to bed, and passage of 67, 68 will assuredly foster more litigation, which appears to be based on litigation to fight an unlawful discrimination.
Yeah. Peter, I would suggest that in the interest of time, both tonight and given the short turnaround we have until the meeting, that we not try to edit this by committee, that we authorize you to take the view of the committee once there's a vote, and you've got then you can
Keep it short.
finalize it.
Yeah.
What,
Okay.
just one quick question. I know that, so all four of these, but would I speak to each one as it comes up? Would that make more sense?
No, well,
I mean, because that keeps it.
66 is going to come up first. 66
Right.
is going to come up first. I think you can make this. I think the way the statement currently has been drafted can address that, and then when 66, and then when 67, 68, and 69 come up, you can reference your prior statement. I mean, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's important to sort of link them together, and it makes more sense to link.
That's
them
why
all
it's good
together.
66 is first.
I only am concerned that in mentioning, you have the floor on 66, and in mentioning 67 to 68, that somebody objects that they haven't been called, or they're not been called yet. But I think you can basically say, I'm actually not discussing with them, I'm just contrasting them, or something like that. And get through it that way. So if just any other discussion on this, and somebody would actually need to make a motion. And
The only thing, 67 and 68, the problem is that it discriminates against non-residents.
Yes, it's a dormant
So
commons.
that should be brought out, that it's violates the federal constitution. Not that violating the Constitution is any big deal.
it seems
But
to
I
be
think you
in
can
fashion
only-
these days.
You can only bring that up when you get to Article 67, not at 66.
Yeah,
You-
no, that's
Yeah,
but that's
right.
one of.
The same thing on when section 13 is being brought up. They won't welcome any comments on 66 or anything else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sarah will not permit that.
Yep. Okay, so is there a motion?
I'll move, Peter, I'll move that we support Article 66 and not support 67, 68, and 69.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this? Okay, I think we should do a roll call vote on this so that we know exactly what we have, because somebody may sharpshoot this. I'll start with Scott.
Aye.
Patty,
Yes.
Gary,
Aye.
Peter Kahn, Lou Bisano, did you join us? No. Don Green,
It was on.
It was on.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was,
he's there, but he's just muted.
Raise your hand, Don.
Come back to circle back to
we can come back.
He just said yes.
He's no-
On that little microphone.
Okay. Yeah.
Pam Swan. I don't think she's gotten on. Jean Briskman,
Yes.
Donna Martino,
yes.
Lynn Filipsky,
Aye.
Steve Pearlman,
Yes,
Bill Gardner, And Kathy Baird,
Yes.
Peter Halley is a yes as well. So I think that I guess everybody who voted yes. And did I miss Don Green? Did he finally come on or?
Yeah, he did.
He did. Okay. So can we say that it was unanimous amongst those that voted?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think 12 voted, there are three absent, is that right?
No, it's actually 4 absent, so it has to be 11.
Okay, but it's a unanimous of those voting.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, thank you on that. Let me find and we have Town Council Study Committee, that's Article 87. And this is, I guess the question is whether we want to say anything about this or stay silent.
I think we should stay silent,
Okay.
but I welcome other committee members' thoughts.
You're the one who's closest to it, if,
Well, just so you know, I listened to the moderator's meeting with everybody today to go through the warrant and what she was gonna do and so forth and so on. And that's just the sense of the meeting, the very first thing that comes up. And basically their plan is they really are gonna just have, Joe Grouse isn't gonna be there, so somebody else is gonna speak, like 5 minutes. They'll allow like maybe 2 other people if there's any opposing. And then that's pretty much it, because it's not on the warrant. It's not an article. They don't want to have it go on forever. So it's going to be very limited. And so I don't think
Okay.
there's reason to say anything, because there's really not going to be time to do that. They're not going to permit it.
And also, Jeff Carlson is going to be speaking, and it's just going to be, as you're saying, Kathy, a sense of the meeting, a sense of how things are going. And Sarah has allowed a few questions and comments, kind of thing, and then they're going to just move on.
Okay, so any other thoughts on this?
I heard the discussion at the Finance Committee today, and I was disappointed with how much short shrift they gave all the work that Donna and the rest of the committee had done for all of these months. And basically, Sarah was very worried. It's going to be a long meeting. She was hoping she could get it done on one day, which it won't ever get done. And she said, we don't want to prolong the meeting by having a big discussion up front about this, which is not even being voted on as a real warrant. So let's cut it down. And first she said 20 minutes, then it was 14 minutes. Now it's going to be 10 minutes, and Jeff Carlson will speak for 5 and somebody speak against it for 5. So they really gave a short shrift. Anyway, that's what I saw.
Okay.
No problem.
So I think we'll pass this by and be right back. The next is affordable housing seasonal designations, Article 42 to 59, and then Article 82. I think when we last met, the real issue was Article 82, which is whether or not the state law designating Nantucket and other communities as seasonal communities that provide certain kinds of benefits is something that we ought to be concerned about. And I read the underlying state law, and I just don't think that we ought to take a position on this one or the other. I think it would be good if it was approved. But I'm just, I'm not tuned into what the politics of this whole thing are, and I think staying silent probably is the best thing to do. If anybody else has a view? Yes.
Agree with you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then we have, let's see, I think that is it on our comments that we
Peter,
yeah.
I'm not sure, I'm sure we probably shouldn't comment about it, but I'd just like to mention something. The town has put out something. I haven't figured out how to use it. I think Peter Kahn was figuring out the other day, last time we met, which is to say, how much is this going to cost? Well, what I saw with respect to the old island home, our island home, is that with the new numbers, with the
Mhm.
new numbers, 126 million, it's going to cost the non-voting taxpayers, or I shouldn't say it that way. I should say it's going to cost the people who do not have the benefit of the residential exemption. There's a lot of people, they're not all non-voting taxpayers. Some of them live on the island, but they own more than one property, so they can only get it on one. So it's going to cost all of the people who do not have the do not have the residential reduction, exemption, going to cost them $1,000 a year for 30 years. Just one item. It's 900 and something or other, 975 or something like that. That's just one item. Then the next item is the DPW thing. So what I'm looking at, and the reason that this whole thing is so crazy, is that if they pass the our island home thing and the DPW thing, and of course we need the housing for the employees of the town, who mostly are voting, so they'll probably approve that. The amount of increase to the average homeowner is going to be colossal. And it's not just the non-voting taxpayers, although we'll pay more than the others, but everyone is going to feel the impact of this. We're talking about for years and years, and I haven't seen anyone done the full calculation of what this will actually cost if most of the items pass. I know that the RL and home thing is over $950 or $70, right?
And that's
But-
for the average. That's for what? That's for what's that, for a $3 million home? I mean,
That's for, right.
That's the
3.7
average
million
home,
homes, that's right.
yeah, so you can rest assured that there are many people who have homes well above that who are AC
Right.
and BT members.
So the amount of, and this is going to affect so many people, not just the non-voting taxpayers. A lot of people on the island who they may own businesses, and the businesses may own some real estate. It's not a residential, they don't get the residential exemption. They're gonna pay it. And people who have more than one home, the locals, the other thing. So it's quite a catastrophe if all of this stuff gets through. It'll certainly I'm not sure it's going to bankrupt it, but we're going to run out of money.
Yeah.
Town is
Well-
going to have to cut back on services substantially.
No, you're absolutely right. And that, I think that was part of our, our argument with respect to Article 13. And one of the items that you didn't mention is the coastal resiliency charges. For example, raising it's Easy Street and part of Washington Street. That's another huge portion. And then that doesn't even include raising the ferry dock. And it goes on and on and on. It's a really pretty grim outlook in terms of capital outlays.
I think the Inky in its editorial, without putting any numbers down, indicated that the 100 million or 125 million on our island home would have to come from somewhere, and it might cause expenditures like these other things we're talking about have to be reduced or postponed.
Yeah.
They did point that out.
Yeah. Well, I think we're on the right side of this issue, and we can only hope that the voters, are inform themselves and make a good decision. But I also left out one series of articles or article, and that is the coastal resiliency articles. And I left that out in part, I think my mind closed it out because I think the main article has been taken out of the warrant for this time around, and that was the article that would have approved whatever needed to be approved in order.
PRDs, coastal resilience districts, yeah.
Yeah,
Took it out
the
this year.
Wisconsin thing. And I think they've withdrawn that because probably they felt they needed,
Too much.
yeah. Yeah. So, so we are where we are. So I think right now we're really heard from the Town Council Study Committee on earlier tonight. And we, I don't know if we need a report from the PR committee. I must say, let me just say a word of thanks to our PR committee. They were extremely helpful in terms of the guidance and the placement of the letters that we sent to the Inky and the Current. And it's the level of expertise that I don't have, and I'm just thankful that Steve and Patty have it, and they gave good advice. So kudos to them. And I also was reminded by Steve not to call, what was it, Steve? Not to call you guys flax or something like that?
The flax.
Correct. You could call us the PR team, but not to call us flax.
So I've been admonished, and rightfully so.
Lynn has her hand up and so does Donna.
Yeah. Lynn.
Going back to the comments about how much everything costs, you have to remember we're the third lowest tax rate in Massachusetts. And the reality between obviously coastal resilience and the DPW project, which is really mandatory, these are things you just can't say no to. And we don't have a voice in this particular fight because this is decided really without us, and with good reason, because the voters are the ones who decide. But I think the reality is the only optional thing on the plate is the nursing home. And so although we have a history of the Quaker way of taking care of people, this will run into a wall unless they modify how it can be done. And I think what we said at the beginning of the meeting is perfect, that we are for it, but it's unaffordable. The other things are almost mandatory, and you're just going to have to get used to the fact that the non-resident taxpayer is on the hook. And that is the reality of this. And there's no picking and choosing as we go forward. They're all essential things to do.
Yeah, although Lynn, I must say, I haven't studied it closely, but what I was hearing is that this may be a gold-plated DPW. And that's, I think the issues there are worthy of looking at.
It's not gold plated. If you've ever been to the DPW, none of the machines are protected from salt.
No, I understand. We need to, no.
But, yeah,
And they're
but
in
you
a
need a
flood
new one, but
zone.
you don't
Okay,
need
one
it
at a time,
gold-plated.
one at a time, please.
Yeah, no, I think that was my point, that I'm not questioning whether you need a new DPW. The question is whether you need the Cadillac or you need the Chevy.
I think you need further study on
That's,
this, and you will come to another conclusion that this is long-term planning where it's more essential to pay the money now than to do add-ons later. So I don't think as a committee that we should have a position on that at all.
I agree.
Donna and then Patty.
I just wanted to say something about town council, because as we've been going through this over the last number of months, it's an opportunity for us. So we cannot vote on it, but please keep in mind that if we were to have a town council, we would have a much greater vote, because we could vote often, and not vote, excuse me. We could participate more often and participate in many committees that are going to be developed. So we would have a greater voice. So town council, in my view, after listening to opinions of voters and so forth, town council would give us an opportunity to share our opinions and participate more in the Nantucket government.
Patty?
I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but I wanted to comment on what Lynn said. We may be a low tax rate in relation to other cities in Massachusetts, but we have a hard time getting people to move to Nantucket, stay there and service all that we want them to service. And if your tax base is going up and you can't even get people to come now, it's got to be kept in the forefront of our thinking that you got to somehow get people to move here, and the taxes going up isn't going to do it.
Anybody else? Okay, so
Public
so
comment?
I heard Lynn as well, and I then put my economist hat on, having had economy 101, very high level economy. And the reason our tax rate is so low is because of the value of all the property here. We have a very, very high property rate. And the reason the value of that property is so high is because it's a very desirable place. In order to keep it a desirable place, we have to spend all this money. And so taxes will inevitably go up somewhat, but they would go up much more on a millage rate basis if we didn't do all this stuff and all of a sudden this became a very unpopular place to be and the value of the land went down precipitously, because you'd have the same costs, especially these capital costs that are financed over a long time, and a lower tax base. So that's my Econ 101 analysis. Somebody who's taken Econ 102 may be able to refute it.
Well, the reason the tax rate is so low is because only 20% of the property serves the schools. 80% of the houses are closed during school year. And so the biggest expense of any town is the education. And we have a very small school compared to the number of houses that we have, because most of them are closed during this winter.
That's a good rebuttal. Thank you.
We're gonna open it up. We're gonna open it up to public comment and then go take a.
Yeah, we can open to public comment, then we discuss when we should have our next meeting and
Yeah.
so on. Is there any public comment? So Carolyn Balzer.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. It will really help the voters to have clarity.
Good. Thanks. Thanks for all the information that you have provided to everybody on these issues. It's been helpful. Bob, I'm sorry, John Delano, you're next up.
You for Bob and Virginia?
Yeah, Bob, yeah.
Yes, thank you. I also want to thank you for the support. I think it's really important that the committee takes a stand on 66 and in a positive way, because one of the things that I found most disturbing is that over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a narrative that has created another class of non-voting taxpayers, and that's those of us who choose to or need to rent to maintain our homes. And it's discouraging, and it sometimes I feel like it's we need to be ashamed, because we're here in Nantucket for 26 years and need to rent to keep the place in tip-top shape. So by you coming out and taking a position, I feel that it adds a lot of support for us. So thank you very much.
Great, great. Anybody else out there? I'm not sure I can see everybody.
John Delano.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's John.
Yeah, thank you. Let me first begin by thanking each of you as committee members for the service you give. I've had the pleasure of tuning into some of your meetings over the years, and certainly when I was the an alternate on the STRWG working group with Peter Kahn and Kathy Barrett and many others, learned a whole lot about this issue. I just want to say again, thank you for your service, but also thank you for your vote tonight in support of Article 66 in opposition to 67, 68, and 69. I have been a non-voting taxpayer on Nantucket for 45 years. And in fact, I was just noticing right here on my desk on Nantucket, anybody recognize what this is?
Oh,
Oh, telephone.
Old rotary phone, yeah, which was it actually has the 617 area code back when we were 617 on Nantucket. And just as Bob Vadoni just so well articulated, I have rented my home for part of the summer of every year for 45 years. And it's really an essential part of the ability of folks like me to own property on Nantucket. And while I wish I could afford not to rent, we have to. And therefore, you're being on top of the issue. That Peter Kahn is so good at writing and so knowledgeable about this issue of the Dormant Commerce Clause of the US Constitution, which I'm sure eyes glaze over on. But the notion that we as citizens ought to be protected, as particularly as non-voting residents ought to be protected from discrimination is really key. So again, thank you for your work. Thank you for being on board on this issue. I think there are countless number of folks just like Bob, just like me, who have been on the island for decades and whose future on the island really depends on what happens on Saturday. So Kathy, I urge you to speak up on each and every one of these particular articles, articulating the position of this committee and speaking on behalf of all of us. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? In that case, our next meeting is currently scheduled for when is it?
May 10.
May 10th,
May
it's a
10th.
Next Saturday after this Saturday. And should we have a meeting then, or should we go on to the, we don't have a speaker planned or anything else, and we might find it advantageous to skip a meeting at this point.
When is the town election? Because if the high budget items pass at Saturday's meeting, they're still not valid until approved by the voters at the election.
I think it's May
That's a couple
20th.
of weeks off, right?
Is it May 20th?
Yeah.
think so.
So we won't even know,
Yeah.
even if some of this stuff passes, if the population finally sees what it's going to cost them and they choke on it, then they might not even pass it during the election. So the meeting before then won't be as informative. Maybe the meeting after that. be
Well,
more-
after that is, the next Saturday after that is Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, we now know we can meet at night sometimes.
No, but we can meet in June. We can meet in June. There's, we can meet in, in one of the first, at some point on a Saturday in June.
Yeah.
One of the not the first Saturday in June, but maybe the
Yeah,
second.
maybe the 12th. I mean, maybe I'm sorry, the 14th.
I know I'm going away, but I think it's late in June.
Yeah.
So I'll have to
I can do it on via Zoom. I can't be there.
Why don't we get a date down and then we'll figure out if it works.
Well, we can do the 31st of May, people. That's it.
No,
The week after
I can't.
Memorial Day.
No, that's not.
No, that is Memorial Day. That
23rd.
is Memorial Day weekend.
No, it's
No,
not.
no, Memorial Day weekend's the prior weekend.
Oh,
It's early
I
this
can't,
year.
I can't do that one. I could do the 14th or the 7th of June.
7th of June sounds like it would be a good idea,
Okay.
at least to me. So should we look for 7th of June, and then is there any particular one of these speakers that we've been talking about that people want to hear from?
Who's on the list right now that we haven't?
I don't have the list in front of me, but certainly
I think we had, let's see.
DPW?
We had DPW, we had David Gray, sewer director. We had those two listed in our last minutes.
I go for the DPW.
W might be interesting.
Yeah. DPW is,
It's sort of an annual event for us.
how long has that person been in the saddle now? They've been
Changing
revolving
them.
door, yeah. But we'll try for the DPW first, and then just send me whatever suggestions you have, because I would like to go for a record short meeting right now.
Yeah,
If
good.
we have nothing else that we need to discuss.
I'm leaving for France that day, but I might be able to do it in the morning. If not, Peter, you can run the meeting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we can figure it out one way or another.
Okay.
So that would be June 6th.
June
Any new business or any unanticipated items? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Good night. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
good night.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Guests, 8 guests tonight. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Good night.